We're joined by the one and only Milo Yiannopoulos there in studio. Milo, good to speak to you.
Hello, Pumpkin. How are you?
You so fucking precious when you smile.
You know, the banner hang with the NRA, they're calling for killing Republicans. We had the Facebook group last week where literally they were like, yeah, we need to get revenge by having more James T. Hodgkinsons, more crazed shooters, shooting Republicans, shooting conservatives. Have you ever seen a time where things are this divisive, this hysterical, this unhinged?
No, and I don't think anybody has for many decades, but it's a good job that liberals are such terrible shots. Steve Scalise, of course, lived. If it had been a Republican shooting, he might not have done. It's interesting, you know, liberals on the one hand claim, you know, they're saying that they want a violent revolution. They're going to start getting guns. They're going to resist Trump. Well, this is their undoing, really. I mean, on the one hand, they say they want a sort of violent revolution. At the same time, they're asking for gun control. The undoing of these liberal protesters is going to come down to their reliance on words over action. The left has been policing language so long and so effectively. The left has been controlling what we can all say as a way of controlling what we can all do for so long and with such great results. I think that they imagine words are now enough to beat us. Words are now enough to do the job. Well, they're not. You know, left-wingers seem to think they're going to be able to disarm 100 million Americans and Second Amendment supporters merely by saying so, or by putting some innocent-looking children who have been coached with Democrat Party talking points on television, instead of actually, you know, taking to this. If the left really wants a civil war, I think it's fairly obvious which way it's going to go pretty quickly. As far as the level of the fever pitch hysteria, there's nothing more disgusting, literally nothing more disgusting than people taking to the airways on the bodies, the still warm bodies of dead children, to advocate for policies that would not work, policies that would not stop this happening in the future, policies that would not stop any previous attack from happening, and which are really aimed, as everybody I think knows by now, as has been well established, at entrenching and enlarging and ameliorating the power of the state and reducing the ability of private individuals to protect themselves against tyranny and to protect themselves against anything else and anybody else. I mean, it's the most underprivileged and vulnerable people of all who need firearms. It's the women walking through Detroit or Chicago or St. Louis suburbs who would be well served by having a pistol in their handbag and possibly prevented from being attacked and whatnot. It's gay people in Orlando nightclubs subjected to the horrors of imported Islamism who would do well to be carrying. If a couple of people had been strapped up in Pulse in Orlando, the toll wouldn't have been 49, perhaps it would have been 2. It is new, and it is incredible, the level of divisive, you know, vitriol and hatred. I can tell you, as you and I are both visitors, in my case literally, and in your case professionally, to America and to the culture wars, to the extraordinary melting pot of horrors over here. And I can't speak for you, but from my point of view as an impartial observer, you know, without skin in the game, I'm not a Republican, I'm not whatever, it seems to me unarguable that almost the entire range and responsibility of the horrors that are going through society are the result of the progressive left provoking and starting it. You know, Republicans, in my experience in this country on the whole, just want to be left alone. This is the land of liberty. This is where people can pursue their individual good in their own way, on their own, you know, ranch in Montana, free from imposition and free from the prying eyes of government and the interfering of teachers, of lawyers, of all the other assorted professional classes of busybodies, nannies, scolds, and schoolmarms. Most Republicans, and certainly most libertarians, just want to be left alone, but the left just won't leave us. And they continue to inject themselves into our private lives, sociopathically in this case, by advocating for more power for the state and less power for the people in the wake of a well, we shouldn't call it a tragedy really, an attack by a nutter in a school that had nothing to do with gun legislation and would not have been prevented had guns been, had the law been different in any way. And you see the Washington Post thing, amazing thing the Washington Post published from a former writer at 538, Nate Silver's left-wing data-driven blog. And she said, I looked at the evidence. And I've changed my mind. None of the gun control positions proposed by Democrat politicians, none of the things that the celebrities and the the Catholic, whatever, the Democrat politicians who hurl themselves onto Twitter to capitalize from these tragedies, none of the stuff they propose would have made a difference. None of it would have worked. So why are they doing it? Well, it's quite obvious why they're doing it, isn't it? They're doing it because enlarging and empowering the state and debilitating private citizens is in the left's best interests, because when they control all of the organs and all of the institutions of civil society, they're best able to exercise control over the public.
Which is why, Milo, they're now, this is CNN today, literally saying we should lower the voting age to 16 years old. I mean, I believed a lot of ththings when I was 16. Don't really believe any of them now.
I was straight when I was 16.
What did 16-year-old Milo believe, for example? I mean,
I was a heterosexual. I was a heterosexual. I was a heterosexual centrist at 16. And why? Because my frontal lobes weren't fully formed yet. I wasn't actually a person yet. I was 16 years old, and I was being buffeted around by forces beyond my control and by authorities I hadn't yet considered whether or not I should question. Parents, teachers, social pressure from the playground. I mean, just look, I interviewed somebody on my show the other day. It was a young girl who was in her mid-teens who was being told by her teachers, she grew up in in Berkeley, of all places, Berkeley, California, and she was being told by her teachers that questioning their authority, questioning what she was told in class, represented a violation of the school's honor code. These are the kinds of pressures that you have on you when you're 16. You're not even, you're not even fully sexually developed at 16. You're not capable of doing anything at 16, particularly not making decisions about the future. I mean, we all know why. Because people start left-wing, and when they get responsibilities, they get families, they get mortgages and all the rest of it, they move to the right, because of course they do. We all know why they want to lower the voting age. I would raise it to 30.
All right, we'll be back with Milo after the break. I want to talk to Milo about Black Panther and the new Clint Eastwood movie, which isn't getting as much praise, shall we say, as Black Panther and the all-conquering Wakanda. We'll be back after the break on the Alex Jones Show live, Infowars.com. We are live and we are into the third hour of the Alex Jones Show. I'm joined by Milo Yiannopoulos, who will be taking over the reins after this segment. But I want to get his take on Black Panther and the new Clint Eastwood movie, which is not getting as much praise, let's just say. It is, of course, a movie about the attempted terrorist attack in Paris a couple of years ago, where the heroes who actually stopped the attack portray themselves in the film, including one guy who's African-American. So you've got an actual black hero who stopped a terrorist, stopped a massacre, getting absolutely no attention in comparison to the guy wearing a leotard in Black Panther. Milo, we've got Wakanda, which is basically an alt-right paradise, right? It
is. And it
totally is.
I must...
people aren't getting their expectations met when they go to see this film, I imagine, right?
Well, of course, I went to it with the precise expectation of seeing black men in spandex, and I was not disappointed. Look, obviously, I'm never going to criticize a film with lots of sexy half-naked black men, but what was amazing about it was that the analysis that came from Breitbart, came from a writer at my own site, was precisely correct. The analysis of Black Panther was that Wakanda, which, set aside the silliness of Africa having this, glorious, glittering superpower presence were it only for the absence of colonialism. Yeah, it's funny. But set aside that and look at the political dimensions of this country. Well, it's very clear, it's very obvious. This is a nationalist, protectionist, isolationist country with a leader who speaks not entirely unlike Donald Trump. And much more obvious and much more persuasive than that is that Michael B. Jordan, villain, is a social justice warrior. He wants to rain down hellfire on, quote unquote, the oppressor, on white people. It's very, very clear what the messaging is, and I don't think you need to look too deeply or too hard to see it. It's all there for you. This was confounding and confusing to me watching it, and I'd gone expecting to sort of enjoy it at a superficial, trivial level, predictably, but have to sit through and grit my teeth, through the social justice nonsense. But you know what? Actually, the message was completely confounding and the opposite of what we all expected. And the media, of course, is very, very upset that we have all noticed this, confused about our analysis, and is posting lots of pieces about how InfoWars, Breitbart, and Milo. You see all those stories about how, you know, Breitbart liked Black Panther. This is not okay. There were stories at MSN, you know, SF is the Rap. All these, I think there were about 50 stories all told, with all of the aggregators and all the rest of it. About 50 stories about the fact that I published a positive review of Black Panther. They so wanted us to be racist.
Well, I mean, Milo, they expected it to be a gimme, that we would all hate it, we would all be triggered by it, and it would be an easy win for them. But quite the opposite happened. But we did have this article I wanted to mention here out of the root, where they're literally calling, based off a scene in the movie from what they say, for black people to literally start barking at white people to shut them up.
Oh, it's my favorite thing. It's my favorite.
White people who speak out of turn.
So there's, I don't know if it was barking.
It's a parody. It doesn't look like a parody to me.
It's in the movie, so if you haven't seen the movie yet, I'm not spoiling any plot points by telling you that when the sort of heroes in exile go to find a tribe who was previously cast aside or whatever, they go and they're searching for allies to try to build up their base before they launch an assault back on Wakanda. And when they find these guys up north, they happen to have a sort of typical movie white guy who's a bumbling, awkward, terrified idiot, which is of course how we are portrayed in advertising and in the movies on TV these days. And he tries to pipe up, and they do actually bark at him. It's something between. Well, I went on to I went to YouTube and I listened.
Well, they described it as maybe like an ape-like grunt. But,
well, an ape-like grunt. Well, I went onto YouTube and listened to various animal sounds to try to pin down exactly what animal it is. And I'm still searching. So maybe in one of the breaks I'll keep trying and I'll see if I can work out what it is. But yes, I mean, it's sort of. I wonder whether this is one of those things where they're kind of like, we're going to put this in the movie to dare you to be racist about it. You know, so we're going to hand this to the lowest common, because they think we actually are that racist. We think, you know, they're the ones who are making the comparisons between, you know, jungle beasts and people with a particular skin color. And they think we're the bad guys and we're going to take the bait. Well, we didn't. And, you know, instead we're focusing our attention, as you have been, on brilliant storytelling from conservative movie makers like Clint Eastwood, who is actually practicing what the rest of us preach and going out there and making movies that reflect our values. And when they make a good movie and it happens to have black people in it, we'll say great.
Please click the big red button to subscribe. It really helps me when you do that. And click the bell to allow notifications so you never miss a new video.